Hello, I'm Andrew Pritchard, and thank you for watching today's Corn Belt Regional Forecast, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. So check in with the jet stream here on Thursday morning. We watch our ridge of high pressure centered over the western United States, with an axis kind of going from Texas into parts of the Pacific Northwest right now, keeping northwest flow across parts of the central U.S., parts of the Midwest. Watching a little jet stream perturbation there, a little shortwave making its way through parts of the Midwest, and that is bringing showers and storms to parts of the eastern Corn Belt, some areas that badly need a little bit of rain here as we head through the next couple of days. Looking at the jet stream now on Thursday morning, we continue to watch this ridge kind of refine itself. We're going to watch it kind of set back up over the central U.S., at least temporary, bringing some heat back into the region here, bringing a bit of a change to parts of the Corn Belt. We'll talk about what that all means here in just a moment. A snapshot look at your temperature forecast over the next 10 days, looking at the first 5 days on the left and the 5 days that follow that over there on the right. Again, dealing with some cooler air across parts of the Midwest here over the next 5 days or so. As you look at the right, though, I'm not so sure along and south of this line here. Parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt, I'm talking about Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. I think we've got some opportunity for some warmer temperatures as we look at the 7 to 10 day time frame here. So not so sure about the cooler temperatures anomalies in that region. I think we'll keep the cooler temperature risks probably in this region more so as we look at that August 11th through 15th time frame. The precipitation forecast here, this again from the GFS ensemble with an alignment like this. The jet stream with the ridge axis off to the right, watching for a corridor of more frequent showers and storms from the Dakotas into parts of the Central Plains here. As we head into week 2, though, I want to be careful here on getting too many people excited. I'm talking about parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana here where we're watching some dryness creep in, perhaps some opportunities for some more frequent showers and storms in this region as we get into the week 2 time period. We'll talk about why that is here in just a moment. The last 24 hours of precipitation, right now we're watching a frontal boundary making its way through parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt. It brought some rain to parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois in the form of some thunderstorms yesterday, and that's going to continue off to the south and to the east as we head through the rest of the day today. Looking at the last 60 days now, so the last 2 months or so, roughly going back to the first week of June, and this dry spot kind of stands out as we look at parts of Iowa into northern Illinois, northern Indiana, where we've got some drier areas here. The rest of the Corn Belt doing okay with some scattered patchy dryness, and this is an area where we've started to see some low-level drought popping up on the latest drought monitor, and where they do anticipate at least some low-level drought beginning to continue to develop. And again, that makes sense with a mostly dry next 7 days across this very same region. Looking at the 7-day the satellite picture, this is absolutely not a 7-day forecast. This is your satellite picture here, the infrared satellite picture. So we're looking at the temperatures of the cloud tops here on Tuesday morning. We'll let this play. See the flow around the area of high pressure off to the west, got the monsoon going. But here in the Midwest, here is our frontal boundary making its way through this decaying area of showers and storms across parts of Illinois here. We'll look at the radar, and there you see it. This is what's left of the thunderstorms from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and northern Illinois last night, making its way into parts of central Illinois, decaying, dying out, but the outflow that is existing along and ahead of that maybe light back up as we head through the later part of the day across parts of Illinois and Indiana. And of course, the frontal boundary lingering off to the back here may light up as well across parts of central Illinois and central Indiana. Who exactly sees the most rain here today? Going to be a bit of a tricky call, but again, we do anticipate thunderstorms kind of redeveloping across this region as we head through the afternoon and evening. A closer look here, we're looking in central Illinois, zooming in on that decaying area of storms, and wanted to show these were still going pretty good a couple hours ago. This video is being recorded here at about 4:45 on Tuesday morning. So of course, if you're watching this video later, take an updated look at the radar picture. But you see this line coming out a bit ahead of the decaying areas of storms. That thin line, that's the outflow, the rain-cooled air making its way out ahead of these storms. And oftentimes when we see our lines of storms dying, you see that thin line on the radar begin to push out. And again, as that line pushes over you, that little outflow boundary, you get a kind of a cool breeze. I stepped out with my cup of coffee and let that outflow boundary pass over again. And it brought the winds out of the northwest for a little bit, nice breeze, cooler air, with the rain following on the back side. And again, that outflow boundary, as it continues to make its way off to the south and east, it may serve as a triggering point later on in the day across parts of southern Illinois, southern Indiana, for some thunderstorms developing this afternoon and evening. As we look at the surface picture here on Tuesday morning from the National Weather Service, here's that frontal boundary making its way into the area where we expect the rain and thunderstorm to be rain and thunderstorm activity to be most numerous as we head through the early parts of the day on Tuesday, with that area of high pressure lingering off to the backside. Now, as we look at things on Wednesday evening, we're going to watch this same frontal boundary. This is the one moving through the eastern Corn Belt today, kind of stall out across the Central Plains. Meanwhile, another frontal boundary, a reinforcing shot here, going to be making its way into the upper Midwest as we head through again Wednesday evening. This will make its way down here across parts of the Corn Belt here on Thursday. But the evolution of this is key to where we're headed in the week 2 time period. And so let's keep moving. Let's look at the high resolution NAM model. This will give us the precipitation forecast here over the next 2.5 days, understanding that this is not exactly how things will play out. Just look at the overall nature of things. As we head through Tuesday morning here, watching this decaying area of thunderstorms across parts of Illinois. And as we head in the afternoon now, we'll expect to see things kind of flare back up. And again, right now, the high-resolution NAM model keeping things most numerous from southern Illinois into parts of Ohio. So southern Illinois into central Indiana, central Ohio. And that would be along that decaying area of thunderstorms, that outflow boundary is what the high-resolution NAM model is hanging on to. Now, I want to say, though, let me see if I can find the most ideal time frame here to kind of make the story the most obvious. So the high-resolution NAM model kind of keeping thunderstorms most numerous in this area, but the potential exists further north into parts of central Illinois. It's just not quite as good of a shot. So if you live in central Illinois, central Indiana, you got a shot for some showers and storms redeveloping during the afternoon, but certainly the higher chance, I think, going to be across parts of southern Illinois, southern and central Indiana, and getting into southern and central Ohio as we head through Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening. Let me take the drawings off. We'll head through this a little bit further. So going through Tuesday night now, getting into Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. Here's the second frontal boundary now with some thunderstorms possible, widely isolated thunderstorms possible across parts of Iowa, more widespread across Wisconsin and Michigan off to the north. Now we're watching, though, as a disturbance, an upper-level disturbance kind of comes through the Central Plains with that first frontal boundary stalling out across the Central Plains. That's why I said this is important, because now we're starting to get southerly flow coming back up and interacting with that frontal boundary, bringing some heavy precipitation chances to parts of the Central Plains and to parts of the Ozarks. So talking about Nebraska, Kansas, really Kansas and Missouri for the most part, but Nebraska certainly has the potential to pick up on some of this. But perhaps some heavy precipitation across the Central Plains and parts of Missouri as that frontal boundary again stalls out in the same region. The accumulated forecast that accompanies that, so we'll go ahead and we'll just bring this back. Let this play one more time. Get the cursor up here as we head through Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. Again, here is the isolated and scattered shower and storm activity that accompanies that first frontal boundary across parts of the eastern Corn Belt. Now remember, this area needs some rain. We're talking about parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, and this area certainly got some yesterday. But parts of, again, central Illinois, central Indiana, where we badly need some rain, I just can't promise that we're going to get it here Tuesday afternoon and evening. There's the chance there along that frontal boundary, but as we get closer and closer here Tuesday morning, it certainly looks like the best chance going to be off to the south across southern Illinois and southern Indiana. And we take the drawing off. Let's go ahead. Let's get things moving again. Head through the day Wednesday. Now we're starting to watch parts of the Central Plains and the Ozarks here into Missouri for some of the heavier precipitation here Wednesday night into parts of Thursday. Again, locally heavy precipitation possible, and this is an area here that saw some heavy rain over the last 10 days or so. So, perhaps some local flooding issues in this region, but overall, the big chunk of Kansas really needs some rain, so this is not bad news. But again, if you live in Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, remember this over the next 2.5 days, it's hit or miss at best. Not everyone going to be picking up on rain from this frontal boundary making its way through. It's just simply not going to be the case. And often drier patterns, they say drought begets more drought. Certainly we're not in a significant drought here, but patterns do mean something. And it's been a drier pattern across Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. And so again, I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, but I know we've got the frontal boundary in here. I know we've been excited about the potential for some rain here Tuesday across parts of the eastern Corn Belt, and I just want to make sure that that some people are going to get some here, but there are some of you across central Illinois and central Indiana who are simply going to be missed here. The severe weather forecast over the next 3 days, so here is Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, watching a marginal risk accompanying the frontal boundary in the eastern Corn Belt. That second system making its way in here with a slight risk across parts of South Dakota. That was supposed to be North and South Dakota, northern Nebraska there. As we head to the day Wednesday, the second frontal boundary with a slight risk of a few severe storms across eastern Iowa into Wisconsin. And then Thursday, that next frontal boundary making its way into parts of the eastern Corn Belt. This would be eastern Indiana into the state of Ohio, a slight risk for some strong storms in that region Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. The jet stream right now, looking at 500 millibar height anomalies from the European long-range model, that axis of the ridge right now making its way from the southwest into the Pacific Northwest. Northwest flow across the Midwest here into the Great Lakes. Where are we headed then? We'll play this out. This will give us some clues as we head into the week 2 time period. Heading through the middle part of the week now, Wednesday into Thursday and now Friday, watching the ridge kind of set back up over the central United States. That's going to allow some heat to build back into the central U.S. and parts of the Corn Belt later on this week. Heading into the weekend, we watch this next little wave making its way through the Pacific Northwest. It's going to ride up and over the top of this ridge and help kind of flatten things out as we get into the week 2 time period. Now we're looking at things a bit flatter across the United States here. This would be Tuesday, August 13th right now. And let's flip over. Let's look at the jet stream winds there at 500 millibars. This is a good level to look for shortwave troughs. These are, clues that can help, pinpoint where our thunderstorm activity is going to be going on. Tuesday morning right now, this patch of stronger winds. This is the shortwave that's making its way into parts of the eastern Corn Belt right now, bringing the chance of storms to parts of Illinois and Indiana as we head through Tuesday afternoon and evening. Taking this out through Wednesday and then Thursday, all the way into the weekend now. Here you see the ridge kind of setting back up over the central U.S., allowing some heat to build back into the region. Take the drawing off and then take this into, here's that trough making its way up and over the top here from the Pacific Northwest into the Dakotas now. If we stop this here August 12th, again, you watch things kind of zonal. The jet stream right now, you're not seeing the big ridge. We're not seeing a big trough. You're seeing things going kind of sideways here, and that's zonal flow. And that, again, that's why I pointed out parts of the eastern Corn Belt right here. This allows some heat to definitely build back into areas along and south of there. So when we saw the cooler temperatures setting up there from Missouri into Illinois and Indiana and Ohio, as we talk about week 2, I want to kind of pump the brakes right now. Where we're headed beyond this, certainly some question marks, but as I look at next weekend into early next week, certainly some opportunities for some heat to build back into the region. But that also means we're going to be dealing with zonal flow here. The corridor of thunderstorm activity making its way back into parts of the northern plains and the upper Midwest. But we'll have to watch parts of the southern periphery there. I showed you the week 2 precipitation forecast showing perhaps some higher precipitation anomalies making its way into the Corn Belt. I want to, again, exercise caution kind of in this general area, but where there may be some warmer temperature risks, perhaps some more opportunities for dryness, but at least some optimism as we head into week 2 as far as maybe getting some more frequent thunderstorm activity, some more frequent rain opportunities in parts of the eastern Corn Belt heading off beyond August 12th. The temperature forecast here, looking at temperature anomalies, we'll go through kind of quickly just to show you the overall theme. We'll play this out. Let's see if we can get the cursor to show up here. We won't. So let's just say we'll get started here on Tuesday, watching some warmth kind of build back into the region. We've seen cooler or a milder and a less humid air mass over the eastern Corn Belt over the last almost 2 weeks, but we are starting to see a more summer-like feel build in here. Central Illinois, yesterday was a little bit warmer and muggier, starting to get that thick feel. And again, that kind of fuels the thunderstorms, that warm and humid air mass. But let's watch how things play out as we take this out into the later parts of the week. We're watching these frontal boundaries move through, so kind of flipping between a couple degrees cooler, a couple degrees warmer across the Corn Belt mid to late week. But as we take this into the weekend, I want to get this into the weekend and into early next week. This is really what I wanted to show with the jet stream kind of the ridge kind of strengthening over the central U.S., at least temporary, as we get into the weekend into early next week. That's what's allowing some heat to kind of build back into the region. And again, why in some of these areas I said let's pump the brakes on some of the cooler temperature anomalies showing up there, because it does look like we've got some opportunities for warmth over the weekend into early next week. Another way to kind of look at things here, we're looking at the precipitable water forecast. So this is the moisture content within the atmosphere. I've showed this a couple times over the last few forecasts. We'll go ahead and we'll take this back. And the reason I put this in here is to show you certainly the frontal boundaries making their way into the region. You see the drier air pushing in from the north and from the northwest right now. The more humid air mass off to the south in the form of those brighter yellow and red colors. And the reason for showing this, we watched that push in, but you see the front doesn't clear the region as it was over the last couple of weeks. We're watching that dry air push all the way into parts of the central U.S., and that's what had kept that milder and less humid air mass over the central U.S., was getting that push of drier air from the northeast. That doesn't happen this time. Instead, we get return flow, pumping the moisture and the heat back into the region with a jet stream that's kind of flattening out and blasting through this region. Maybe use a different color here. That strong jet stream flow, coupled with moisture return from the south, that's what gives us the opportunity in this area, perhaps for thunderstorm activity resuming in parts of the eastern Corn Belt, where we don't see that air mass being completely scoured from the region. Another way to look at that, the atmospheric instability. This is the CAPE, the fuel for the thunderstorms. We see that first frontal boundary making its way through the eastern Corn Belt here Tuesday evening. As we head through Thursday, here's that reinforcing front, the one that perhaps brings some strong storms to this region Thursday afternoon. But then you see it's clearing parts of the eastern Corn Belt temporarily as we head through the later part of the week and then, the first half of the weekend. But there you see it returning, strong instability by the time we get to Sunday across parts of the Dakotas into the central Corn Belt. And then certainly as we get into early next week, we're looking at Monday and Tuesday now. We're seeing some of those brighter colors returning to the eastern Corn Belt. And again, that's why it's been so dry here, is the absence of this fuel, the absence of this warm, humid air mass has kept things really dry across the eastern Corn Belt without having any real extreme heat building into the region. But if we do, continue this trend where we're going to see kind of this volatile air mass pumped back into the region by the time we get to next weekend into early next week, that will, along with the stronger jet stream winds, keep thunderstorms in the forecast across parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt. Not a flip to a wet pattern by any means, but perhaps toning things down on the dry spectrum and at least bringing in, periodic isolated scattered thunderstorm chances across the eastern Corn Belt in the week 2 time frame. We'll look at the precipitation forecast that accompanies all this from the European model. Again, we'll bring it back to Tuesday. Here's the first frontal boundary making its way through the eastern Corn Belt here Tuesday afternoon and evening. Here's that second front making its way through here Wednesday morning and then Wednesday evening into Thursday. This front now kind of stalling out here from the eastern Corn Belt into the central plains. Where this stalls out, again, that's going to be key for those thunderstorms here later in the week. So watching that frontal boundary kind of stall in this region, something kind of like that. And here we see that corridor beginning to light up late week into the weekend. Now, as we head into the weekend, now we're into Sunday, getting into Monday. Now this is when you're starting to see this air mass kind of return to the central and the eastern Corn Belt and parts of the Great Lakes, starting to see some thunderstorm activity picking up. And again, this is what I'm talking about here. We're looking at Monday and Tuesday. I'm not making promises right now, with specific timing, but just showing you the overall trend is to kind of maybe take the active corridor here and begin to slowly lift that thing north and northeast, bringing some scattered thunderstorm chances, perhaps some more regular precipitation chances to some areas that badly need it. Looking at the total accumulated precipitation here, this is again from the European long-range model. Let's step through time just to kind of show you the zones here. As we head through Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, this is that first frontal boundary. Again, notice the very scattered nature across parts of Illinois and Indiana, areas that badly need some rain and have been hoping for this frontal boundary here on Tuesday. Notice that it's hit or miss. Some people are going to be missed. Some people are going to get some good downpours out of this. As we head through the rest of the week, here comes the reinforcing frontal boundary. Again, missing a lot of people here in the eastern Corn Belt, but perhaps, parts of Ohio picking up on some of the rain here. But again, mostly a quiet frontal passage on Thursday. As we get into Friday and Saturday, watching some of the heavier precipitation here across parts of the Central Plains into the Ozarks here, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri, picking up on that. Notice it is mostly quiet here mid to late week across this dry area here across the eastern Corn Belt. It really is this kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday time period with isolated rain chances at best. But as we head into next week, now you're starting to see things kind of fill back in that corridor. And so this is really the time frame that I'm watching at this point, is that early in the week 2 time period, getting out in the next 7 to 10 days, perhaps some rain chances across that dry area from Minnesota, Iowa into Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. We'll finish with your high temperature forecast here for the next 5 days. The high temperatures here on Tuesday, watching the heat off to the south, temperatures in the lower 80s off to the north. As we go through the day on Wednesday, Thursday, you're starting to see that second front make its way through. High temperatures only in the mid-70s across Minnesota and Wisconsin. Here is Friday and then Saturday. And then over time, watching this heat kind of slowly build back into the region, perhaps bring in some 90s back into the central and eastern corn belt by the time we get to early next week. As always, Eric Snodgrass will have an in-depth look at the evolution of the next 1 to 2 weeks in our Thursday morning ag forecast video, and I'll have your next look at the corn belt on Friday morning. Have a great day.